Your stockpile is rotting right now, while you sleep, while you work, while you convince yourself you're prepared. That shelf in your basement, the one with 30 cans of food, the bottled water, the flashlights, 90% of it will be useless in 5 years. The batteries are leaking. The canned goods are oxidizing from the inside. That bottled water you're so proud of, the plastic is leaching chemicals as we speak. And those expiration dates you've been ignoring, some of them actually matter, some of them don't, and you probably can't tell the difference. Here's what nobody tells you about prepping. Most people are stockpiling trash on a timer. They're spending thousands of dollars on supplies that self-destruct, then pouting themselves on the back for being ready. But when the real crisis hits, when supply chains actually collapse, they're going to open their prep closet and find expensive garbage. Meanwhile, there's a different category of items. Things that laugh at time. Things that remain chemically stable for 30, 40, 50 years. Some of them longer than you'll be alive. And most preppers walk right past them because they don't look tactical. They don't come in camo packaging. They don't have a skull logo or a survival brand name stamped on them. But I'm about to show you exactly which 20 items will still be valuable when your grandkids are using them. Items that don't just store, items that appreciate. Because in a collapsed economy, these things become currency, real wealth, the kind you can hold, use, and trade when paper money is kindling. The question is, are you actually prepared to hear this? Because once you understand what really lasts and what doesn't, you're going to look at your current stockpile very differently, and you might not like what you see. The iron law of the wasteland. Only 3 things survive the long dark: what can't rot, what can't rust, and what can't be broken down by time. Everything else is borrowed time on a countdown clock. So let's start with the category that separates the living from the dead in the first 72 hours, because here's a fact that should terrify you. Part 1, the purification trinity, your first 72 hours of survival. Right now, your body is 70% water, and 3 days without it, you're dead. But here's the twist that kills most people. Drinking contaminated water means you die even faster, just with more pain and humiliation. Cholera, dysentery, giardia, E. coli. Every drop of untreated water is a potential bioweapon aimed at your intestines. And when the treatment plants fail, when the pipes go dry, when the only water source is that creek behind your house, your survival depends entirely on one question: can you actually purify what you drink? Most people have the wrong answers stored in their basement right now. The bleach lie that's already killing your prep. Pop quiz: what's the shelf life of that gallon of bleach in your emergency kit? If you said years, you just failed. If you said forever, you're in even worse trouble. Liquid sodium hypochlorite bleach degrades in 6 to 12 months. The chlorine evaporates, the chemical bonds break. What you're left with is expensive salt water that won't kill a single bacterium. But walk into any pool supply store right now, and sitting on the shelves is a powder that most people completely ignore: calcium hypochlorite. Pool shock, 68 to 70% pure. And here's the part that changes everything: it has an indefinite shelf life. 1 pound of this powder can purify 10,000 gallons of water. You read that right, 10,000 gallons. That's roughly 27 gallons per day for an entire year, from 1 pound of powder that costs $15. The chemistry is elegant. You mix 1 teaspoon into 2 gallons of water to create a master chlorine solution, then dose your drinking water at 1 part per million. The calcium hypochlorite dissolves and releases hypochlorous acid, which penetrates bacterial cell walls and obliterates them at the molecular level. No bacteria, no viruses, no parasites, just H2O. While everyone else is fighting over contaminated streams with their degraded bleach, you'll have a lifetime supply of purification that never expires. But purification is only step 1, because once you've got clean water, your next problem is food, specifically how to keep it from rotting before you can eat it. And that brings us to an acid that's been sitting in kitchens for 200 years, waiting for people to understand what it really is. The only liquid acid that defies time. Most people think vinegar is vinegar. Apple cider, white distilled, wine, rice, they assume it's all basically the same. Wrong. And that assumption is going to cost them their entire harvest. Apple cider vinegar develops sediment over time. Wine vinegar oxidizes and changes flavor. Rice vinegar goes cloudy. They all contain organic compounds that eventually degrade and shift the chemical profile. But white distilled vinegar? 5% acetic acid in pure water. Chemically stable. The acidity is too extreme for bacteria. The molecular structure doesn't break down. You can store it for 50 years in a sealed container, and it will have the exact same pH, the exact same antimicrobial properties, the exact same preservation power as the day it was bottled. Now, here's what most people miss. Vinegar isn't a cleaning product that happens to be food safe. It's the backbone of long-term food preservation. You cannot pickle vegetables without acid. You cannot safely can low-acid foods without raising the acidity. Try to preserve food without adequate vinegar, and you're creating the perfect environment for Clostridium botulinum. That's the bacterium that produces botulinum toxin, the most poisonous substance known to science, the thing that causes botulism. You'll poison your family, not might, will. Vinegar also cleans wounds, softens tough meat, kills mold, dissolves mineral deposits, and acts as a fabric softener. A gallon costs $3. Buy 20 gallons, store them in a dark closet, forget about them until the world ends. They'll outlast you. But even with clean water and preserved food, there's a third element that no one talks about until it's too late: pain management. Because in a grid-down scenario, people get hurt, and when there are no emergency rooms, no anesthesia, no pharmaceutical supply chains, you need something that can disinfect deep tissue and numb agony at the same time. Most preppers have the wrong answer for this, too. The medical supply hiding in plain sight. Beer goes bad. Wine oxidizes. Anything under 40% alcohol eventually turns to vinegar or explodes its container. But high-proof clear spirits? Vodka at 80 proof or higher? Everclear at 190 proof. Sealed properly, they last indefinitely. The molecular structure of ethanol is stable. It doesn't degrade. It doesn't go rancid. An unopened bottle from Prohibition is chemically identical to one bottled yesterday. But here's where amateur preppers reveal themselves. They stockpile this stuff to get drunk, to barter for comfort, to take the edge off, and they completely miss what it actually is. High-proof alcohol is a field hospital in a bottle. First, it's a solvent for making medicinal tinctures. You need to extract anti-inflammatory compounds from willow bark? Alcohol. Immune-supporting echinacea? Alcohol. Sedative valerian root? Alcohol. Every serious herbal medicine requires ethanol extraction to concentrate the active compounds into something potent enough to actually work. Second, it's the best surface disinfectant you can make without a chemistry lab. Dilute 90% ethanol down to 70% with distilled water, and you've got surgical-grade antiseptic. It kills bacteria, viruses, and fungi on contact. You can sterilize tools, prep skin before suturing, disinfect wounds. And third, and this is the part no one wants to think about until they're staring at it, when someone is screaming from a compound fracture or a deep laceration and you have no morphine, no lidocaine, no pharmaceutical options, you pour this down their throat until the screaming stops. It's crude, it's medieval, but it's better than watching someone die from shock because you couldn't manage their pain. Congratulations, you now understand the purification trinity: water, preservation, and pain management. But knowing how to stay clean and fed means nothing if you starve to death because you stockpiled the wrong food. And that's where most preppers catastrophically fail, because the healthier a food is, the faster it betrays you. Part 2. The Calorie Vault. Why health food will kill you. Let me destroy every nutritional assumption you've ever made in one sentence. The more whole grain, natural, and unprocessed a food is, the faster it rots. Brown rice, rancid in 12 months. Whole wheat flour, rancid in 6. Nuts? The oils oxidize into toxic compounds in less than a year. All those vitamins, those healthy fats, those nutrient-dense compounds everyone obsesses over, they're chemical time bombs ticking toward spoilage. You want forever storage? You need to embrace what nutritionists hate: the refined, the processed, the dead foods that have had every degradable compound stripped away. Because those foods aren't just shelf-stable, they're immortal.
But before we talk about calories, we need to talk about the mineral that controlled human civilization for 5,000 years. The one thing you absolutely cannot survive without, no matter how much food you have. The currency that never dies. Most people grab iodized table salt and assume they're covered, and they've just made a critical mistake. Iodized salt contains potassium iodide, which oxidizes over years. It yellows, it clumps, the chemistry shifts. After enough time, you're left with degraded crud that won't preserve anything reliably. You need pure sea salt or rock salt, no additives, no anti-caking agents, no iodine, just sodium chloride. And here's the beautiful part. Salt is a mineral. It's not organic, it doesn't rot. It's already survived millions of years of geological pressure. Time literally cannot touch it. But salt isn't seasoning. For 90% of human history, salt was money. Roman soldiers were paid in it. That's where the word salary comes from. Trade routes were built for it. Wars were fought over it. Why? Because without salt, you cannot preserve meat, you cannot cure fish, you cannot tan leather. Your entire food infrastructure collapses. Biologically, salt is essential for electrolyte balance. When you're working 16-hour days trying to rebuild civilization with hand tools, you're losing sodium through sweat. Without replacement, your muscles cramp, your cognition fails, your heart rhythm destabilizes. Hyponatremia kills just as dead as dehydration. A 50-pound bag of pure salt costs $12 and stores forever. It's the single best value-to-survival ratio on this entire list. But salt alone won't fuel you through winter. For that, you need calorie density, which means confronting the single most misunderstood food in the prepper community. The great rice debate and why healthy loses. Every nutritionist, every health blogger, every organic food advocate will tell you to stock brown rice. It's got fiber, it's got B vitamins, it's got the bran layer intact, it's whole grain, and it's going to fail you completely. Brown rice contains oils in the bran and germ. Those oils oxidize when exposed to residual oxygen, even in sealed containers. Within 6 to 12 months, you've got rancid grains that smell like paint thinner and cause digestive distress. Your healthy choice just became toxic waste. White rice is the opposite. It's been milled. The bran and germ have been removed. What remains is pure endosperm, carbohydrate with minimal protein. It's a dead seed that cannot sprout. And because all the oxidizable fats have been stripped away, it remains chemically stable for 30+ years when vacuum sealed with oxygen absorbers. You're looking at 1,600 calories per pound. A 50-pound bag costs $18. That's 80,000 calories of shelf-stable energy. No refrigeration, no rotation, no expiration. It's the cheapest life insurance policy on Earth. But rice is just fuel. You need energy that's immediately bioavailable. And for that, there's only one food in human history that's been found still edible after 3,000 years.
The food that outlived empires. Archaeologists excavating Egyptian tombs have found honey, 3,000-year-old honey. And when tested by food scientists, it was declared safe to eat. 3 millennia, no refrigeration, no preservatives, still stable. The science is beautiful. Honey is a supersaturated sugar solution with a pH between 3.2 and 4.5. Bacteria cannot survive that acidic, low-moisture environment. Bees add glucose oxidase enzyme, which produces hydrogen peroxide as a byproduct. Natural antimicrobial defense built in by evolution. If honey crystallizes, that's not spoilage. That's glucose precipitating out of solution. Warm it gently and it liquefies again. The chemistry hasn't changed, you've just witnessed a reversible phase transition. Beyond energy, honey is medical-grade wound dressing. It's used in burn units because it prevents infection and accelerates tissue regeneration. You spread it on cuts, abrasions, even deep wounds. It creates a moisture barrier while killing bacteria. And here's the psychological element most preppers ignore. In a world without sweetness, without any form of comfort food, honey becomes morale. The difference between functional and broken, between keeping going and giving up. But carbs and sugar only take you so far. The real killer in long-term survival? Fat deficiency. And that's where people die with full stomachs because there's no fat. Fat is essential.
9 calories per gram, required for vitamin absorption, critical for hormone production. Butter is fat, but butter contains milk solids and water. Those compounds spoil, oxidize, turn rancid within months. Ghee is different. It's clarified butter. You heat butter until the milk solids separate and the water evaporates, leaving pure butter fat. That fat sealed in a jar has no moisture for bacteria to exploit and no proteins to degrade, shelf-stable for years, even at room temperature. A single tablespoon is 120 calories of pure fat. When you're burning 4,000 calories a day doing manual labor, ghee is what keeps you alive. Store it cool and dark and it lasts a decade minimum. But fat and protein mean nothing if you can't preserve your harvest when it comes in, and for that, you need the other immortal sweetener, white sugar, the osmotic killer. Brown sugar clumps into cement, powdered sugar absorbs moisture in cakes, but white granulated sugar, chemically immortal. Sugar kills bacteria through osmotic pressure. Bacterial cells are mostly water. Expose them to high sugar concentrations and water gets pulled out through the cell membrane. The cell dehydrates and dies. This is why jams and preserves sit on shelves for years. The sugar content is too hostile for microbial life. Beyond energy, sugar is psychological survival. It's the difference between existing and thriving. A stockpile without sweetness breaks morale faster than any physical hardship. You now have the big five: salt, rice, honey, ghee, and sugar. Calorie-dense, shelf-stable, indefinite storage. But here's the reality check most preppers ignore. Calories without hygiene just means you die slightly slower from infection instead of starvation. And in every collapse in recorded history, disease killed more people than violence and hunger combined.
Part 3. The infection barrier. Why cleanliness is life or death. Here's a statistic that should fundamentally change how you prep. In the 1918 flu pandemic, most people didn't die from the virus. They died from secondary bacterial infections, pneumonia, sepsis, infections that started as minor cuts and turned systemic because there were no antibiotics. Your immune system is robust, but it's not invincible. One infected cut, one case of dysentery, one skin infection that goes septic, and suddenly you're dead not from raiders or nuclear fallout, but from bacteria you could have washed off with soap. Most people stockpile tactical gear and weapons. Almost nobody properly stockpiles hygiene, and that's how they die. The hygiene item everyone gets wrong. Walk into any prep cache and you'll find bottles of liquid hand soap, pumps, gels, antibacterial formulas, all worthless. Liquid soaps separate over time. The water evaporates unevenly. The surfactants break down. After 2 years, you've got separated sludge that barely lathers. Bar soap is different. It's saponified fat. Triglycerides reacted with lye to form soap molecules. Kept dry, it doesn't degrade. A 20-year-old bar might crack, it might look rough, but chemically still functional, still creates the molecular structures that trap oils and bacteria and rinse them away. And soap isn't luxury, it's primary defense. Hand washing prevents dysentery, body washing prevents skin infections, clothes washing prevents parasites. A case of basic bar soap costs $30, stores indefinitely, and keeps you from dying of preventable bacterial infections. But soap requires water, and for the times you can't access it, you need chemical alternatives that do 5 jobs at once. The $5 chemical that replaces 20 products: sodium bicarbonate, baking soda, the most versatile compound in your entire stockpile. Toothpaste? Mix it with water. It neutralizes acid, removes plaque, prevents cavities. Deodorant? Dust it under your arms. It kills odor-causing bacteria. Heartburn? A teaspoon in water neutralizes stomach acid instantly. Scrubbing cleaner? Mildly abrasive, dissolves grease. Fire extinguisher for small grease fires? It releases CO2 when heated. The chemistry is basic. Sodium bicarbonate is alkaline. Most dirt, acids, and odors are neutralized by alkalinity. And as a pure chemical compound stored sealed, it never degrades. A 10-pound bag costs $6. It replaces a dozen specialized products. In a world where supply chains don't exist, minimalism isn't philosophy, it's survival. But chemical hygiene fails if your skin integrity fails. Cracks and abrasions are highways for infection, which is why the next item has been in medicine cabinets since the 1870s.
the petroleum product that saves lives. Vaseline, petroleum jelly, a byproduct of the oil industry, a mixture of refined hydrocarbons. And because it's mineral-based, not organic, it doesn't degrade. No bacteria can metabolize it, no fungi can break it down. You use it to seal wounds. Cracked skin, sealed. Chopped lips, protected. Diaper rash, eliminated. Every wound kept moist heals faster than wounds exposed to air. Petroleum jelly maintains that moisture barrier while preventing contamination. It lubricates tools, prevents rust, protects metal. And here's the survival trick. Coat a cotton ball in it and you've got a 7-minute fire starter that works when everything is wet. The jelly is hydrophobic, it won't absorb water, and it burns slowly enough to ignite damp kindling. But all the prevention in the world means nothing if you're already poisoned. And for that, you need the ER in a bottle. Activated charcoal, when food becomes poison. Food poisoning in a collapse isn't an inconvenience, it's potentially fatal. No IV fluids, no hospital monitoring, just violent fluid loss until you're too dehydrated to function. Activated charcoal is carbon treated to create millions of microscopic pores. When ingested, those pores bind toxins through adsorption. The toxins attach to the charcoal, you excrete the charcoal. The poisons leave your body without entering your bloodstream. Emergency rooms use it for overdoses and poisoning. In a world without hospitals, activated charcoal capsules are your only defense against contaminated food. Bonus, it's also what refills water filters. Those expensive filter systems, just activated charcoal doing the work. Buy it bulk, store it dry, it lasts forever. You're clean, protected, toxin insured, but hygiene doesn't matter if you freeze in the dark, which brings us to the tools that actually last.
Part 4. Fire, Fuel, and Light, the infrastructure that doesn't fail. Batteries corrode, gasoline varnishes, duct tape dries out, matches get wet. Every conventional prep item has a degradation curve that ends in failure. But there are tools, simple mechanical chemical tools that outlast human lifetimes, and most people never learn about them until it's too late. 10,000 fires in your pocket. Lighters empty, matches are single-use, flint and steel requires perfect conditions. Every conventional method has a hard limit. Ferrocerium rods are different, a metal alloy of cerium, lanthanum, and iron that produces 3,000-degree sparks when scraped. One rod, 10,000 plus strikes, and they work wet, frozen, covered in mud. The physics? Friction shaves microscopic particles that ignite on oxygen contact due to low ignition temperature. Pure chemistry, no fuel required. $15, 2 ounces, lifetime of fires. This is the only forever way to create flame reliably. But fire alone won't heat your home through winter. For that, you need fuel that doesn't betray you. The only fuel that never goes bad. Gasoline degrades in 12 months, diesel maybe 2 years with stabilizers. The hydrocarbons oxidize into varnish that destroys engines. Propane is different. It's a simple molecule, C3H8. It doesn't oxidize, doesn't absorb water, doesn't polymerize into sludge. As long as the tank doesn't rust through, the propane inside remains identical to the day it was filled. 50 years from now, that tank will work perfectly. Same BTU output, same reliability. And propane does everything. Cooking, heating, generators, tools. It's the king of storable fuel because it's the only one that doesn't degrade. But fuel and fire mean nothing if your shelter collapses. And when manufactured goods fail, you need the most basic building blocks, the fasteners that rebuild civilization. Duct tape dries out, glue hardens or liquefies, rope rots, but steel fasteners kept in oil or grease paper to prevent rust last indefinitely. Nails are shaped metal, screws are threaded metal, no chemistry to degrade, no compounds to oxidize, just mechanical connection that holds the physical world together. When rebuilding starts, when people are constructing shelters from salvage, these will be worth gold. A 5-pound assortment costs $10. Store them dry, forget them, until you desperately need them. But nails won't help you see after dark, and in a world without electricity, light becomes survival. Liquid light that never fails. Candles melt,
Batteries corrode, flashlights need bulb replacements. Every conventional light source has a failure point. Liquid paraffin, lamp oil, is refined hydrocarbon. Sealed, it's stable indefinitely. Pair it with cotton wick and glass reservoir, and you've got reliable light for decades. Clean combustion, steady flame, doesn't evaporate like alcohol. A gallon costs $8 and provides 100+ hours of light. When the grid fails, darkness crushes morale. People become depressed, anxious, dysfunctional. One lamp burning in the evening is the difference between maintaining humanity and descending into despair. You've got infrastructure, but tools without advanced knowledge are just expensive weight, and that brings us to the tier that separates survivors from rebuilders.
Part 5. Legacy items, wealth that outlives you. Everything so far keeps you alive, but survival isn't the goal. Building is. Creating systems that outlast you is, and that requires thinking in generational timescales. The overlooked powder with 10 uses. Most people see cornstarch as a cooking thickener. They're missing 90% of utility. It's pure carbohydrate powder. Sealed, it's chemically stable forever. Thickens soups into calorie-dense meals, treats chafing and rashes, works as dry shampoo, creates non-Newtonian fluid for education, makes baby powder, absorbs moisture from tools. 2 pounds costs $3. It's the kind of versatile item that increases quality of life in dozens of small ways that compound into psychological resilience. But cornstarch won't feed you next year. For that, you need to think beyond stockpiling and embrace agriculture. The seeds that breed true. Grocery vegetables are hybrids, F1 crosses. Their seeds, sterile or genetically unstable. Plant hybrid tomato seeds get inferior plants. Heirloom seeds are open-pollinated. They breed true. Plant, harvest, save seeds, plant again. Generation after generation, forever. Vacuum sealed and frozen, they remain viable for decades. This isn't just food, it's legacy, the genetic foundation of civilization that could theoretically grow food 1,000 years from now. That's generational wealth no currency can match. The luxury that becomes currency. Coffee beans have oils, they go rancid, but freeze-dried instant coffee removes all moisture. The solids remain stable indefinitely when kept dry. Beyond caffeine preventing withdrawal and boosting alertness, coffee is luxury. In barter economies, luxuries have disproportionate value. People trade food, tools, labor for real coffee. It's psychological relief and constant stress. $8 per jar, stores forever, weighs nothing, becomes increasingly valuable as time passes and supplies dwindle. The historic superfood that lasts 50 years. Pemmican. Dried lean meat mixed with rendered fat, usually 50% fat content, no cooking required, no water needed, pure, dense calories. Remove all moisture, coat in fat to create oxygen barrier, and you eliminate what bacteria need. Properly made, it lasts 50+ years. 3,000 calories per pound, fits in a backpack, requires zero preparation. When every ounce matters, this is the gold standard.
The museum curator principle, why knowledge beats supplies. 20 items, chemical immortality. But here's where everyone fails. They buy it, stack it, forget it. Storage is everything. The holy trinity, cool, dark, dry. Heat accelerates reactions, light causes degradation, moisture invites microbes. Violate one and forever supplies become expensive garbage. Food items. Mylar bags and oxygen absorbers are mandatory. You seal, out absorbers, heat seal. No oxygen, no moisture, no degradation. Liquids. Keep sealed, keep cool. Vinegar in hot garages corrodes caps. Propane in direct sun builds pressure. Metals. Oil prevents rust. Thin mineral oil coating means they outlast our grandchildren. And here's the brutal truth. A warehouse of supplies is worthless without skills. Pool shock means nothing if you don't know dilution ratios. Ferro rods are paperweights if you've never started wet fires. Heirloom seeds are useless if you've never grown anything. Buy the supplies, then learn to use them. Practice, fail, adjust. Because when crisis hits, there's no learning curve. You know or you die. These 20 items aren't just supplies, they're legacy, insurance against entropy, tools that let you laugh at calendars because time can't touch them.
while others watch stockpiles rot, while they panic over expiration dates, while they discard perfectly good supplies because corporations told them to. You'll sit on appreciating wealth. Don't just buy and forget. Maintain them. Rotate knowledge, not supplies. Test systems. And when the world fractures, when supply chains collapse, when money becomes meaningless, you'll have what matters: stable resources and skills to use them. Build your vault or become part of the desperate masses fighting over scraps. The choice is yours. Just don't take too long deciding. The clock's already ticking.